So we got the brakes bolted on. We still got to bleed them, but I'm here by myself, so that's not going to happen. So I'm going to switch gears now. The front suspension's pretty much in. Like I said, the sway bar needs to be tightened up still. The end links need to be put in, and then bleed the brakes. So with that suspension stuff done, we're going to move back to the motor. I'm going to go ahead and install that coolant pipe right here. So this is the new one. Like I said, the last one was rusty right where it necks down right there. It's got two little O-rings that go on here I replaced on the back of the water pump. Make sure you put a little bit of lube on there. You slide this in, and this is going to sit underneath the supercharger intercooler. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing bolted on. I'll go and pull all of the paper towel out of the intake runners, and we're going to go and throw the lower intake down on there, get it snugged down, and then set that blower up on top of it. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Alright, so here's our lower intake, and we already went ahead and installed some of the small hoses and fittings and sensors that might be a little bit of a pain later on. So we're going to go ahead now and drop this thing on the motor, and like I said, make sure that you take out your rags right here, nothing falls down in, and you have all the little O-rings on the bottom here. I'm just going to take a quick razor blade before we go ahead and install this thing. Take your razor blade and just scrape that surface just so there's nothing in there. And then we'll clean it off real quick with some alcohol and go ahead and drop the intake on. And again, so we have all the bolts put in there, and you want to make sure that you're going to tighten that in a circular pattern starting from the middle and work your way all the way out, just like we did on the mains on the 351 stroker build. So like I said, start in the middle and then just kind of work across, and then next one over, and just keep making your circle a little bit bigger until you're all the way done. Make sure that you don't torque them, you know, all the way up the driver's side and then all the way back up the passenger side. It's not how you want to do it. Okay, so we just snugged them in with the little battery impact. We're going to take them back with our little baby torque wrench here, and it goes to 12 Newton meters. So again, don't use your big old impact gun or your impact wrench, torque wrench. You want to make sure that you just use this little guy. So this one does Newton meters and inch pounds, so that's perfect for what we want to do. We're going to take them to 12. There you go. So again, I did my circle pattern all the way starting from the middle and working my way out. And then I went back through just up and down both sides to make sure I didn't miss any. And that's it. Intake's on. And now we can go ahead and start the plumbing. Alright, the intake manifold is bolted down. Now we're ready for the big moment. We have our two studs, as you can see. They're M8 on the bottom underneath the nut here, and they're M6 up here on the top. Those are going to go on the two back holes on the passenger side. And we have the rest of our bolts here for the rest of the supercharger. So I'll go and stick these up right here. Stick these, all these bolts in my pocket, and we'll go grab that supercharger and throw it up on here. Here it is. So there are two different superchargers for a 4.63 valve. There's the there's three. There's the M90, which is a really small little baby supercharger. There's a TVS 1900, which you can put on the M90 intake. It's a bolt-on swap. It'll give you a little bit extra power. And then there's the big boy, the 2300. So this is a TVS 2300. Of course, we didn't want to be, you know, have the little baby one on the block. So we have this big one. This is a VMP unit. This is a Gen 2. And we're going to go ahead and get this thing on. And very last, we're going to put the VMP badge on the top just to make sure it doesn't get damaged or anything while we're doing it. And let's go ahead and throw this thing on. So you guys probably couldn't tell from here, but there's two little dowels, and when you kind of slide it in, it'll drop down and fit on those dowels. Let me zoom in here a little bit for you. So there it is, and like I said, we're going to have these two studs right here and right here. So there you go. And just like when we did the intake manifold, you're going to want to start in the middle and then do your circle pattern all the way out like this. So this one, the one on the other side, you move over one, come down to this guy, go all the way up to that one, across, and so on and so forth, all the way around until you get this thing tightened down. So because this is a supercharger and it has a casting on it, obviously it's made out of a casting, you're going to want to torque it in 3 or 4 different steps. You want to finish at 30 Newton meters, again that really baby small torque wrench. So what I think I'm going to do is I'll go with 5, I'll go to 10, I'll go 20, 25, and 30. So I'm just going to zip it down real quick with this. Make sure you do not blast it with this thing. All you're trying to do is take up all the little extra threads that are going to be down into that intake, kind of speed it up a little bit. Again, make sure that you take your time and do this one right. You don't want to warp that casting or have anything in it, because then the supercharger rotors will bind. Let me zoom you in here. So on this bracket right here, that's where your alternator is going to mount off to the side. There's these 2 little bosses, and we're going to install a couple pulleys. So these little idler pulleys are going to make sure that your belt stays tensioned real nice and tight around that supercharger pulley, and that way you won't get any slipping, so you can make boost. So they came in these little bags. They have a bolt with them, so you're going to go ahead and install one on one little boss, one on the other little boss, and again torque it down to 30 Newton meters. There you go. Okay, so there you go. Now you have a bracket right here. Your alternator is going to mount right there. It's going to sit over in this area over on the side now, instead of straight up on this bolt and that little guy right there in the middle underneath where the supercharger pulley is now. So you can see that we just installed these 2 idlers, torque those to 30 Newton meters. Now we're going to go ahead and we need to change out the spark plugs in each one of these, and 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. Then we're going to go ahead and put on the fuel rail and the fuel injectors. That's what's going to go in those little bosses there and these ones here.